of 1989, and really Stephen Roach the only big name missing. There's Fondriest, the world champion, Sean Kelly of Ireland, his teammate Stephen Rooks from Holland, Andy Hampston of the United States, a former Tour of Italy winner. There in the background you see Milan Cathedral, Greg LeMond of the United States, former Tour de France winner, and the man who won this race last year, Laurent Fignon. So as they get ready underway, the longest classic, 294 kilometres. This, the 80th anniversary, and you can see conditions are not very good, very slippy there as they make their way to the starting line. The race, over 7 hours, the riders well wrapped up, as you can see, for the early stages. Fondriest making his way there. He won that very controversial World Championship in Belgium in August of last year. Now, the bad weather that affected the Tirreno Adriatico race during the week is still around. You can see their conditions very bad in the early stages as the peloton makes their way along the Lombardy Plain and along the picturesque Ligurian coastline. You notice there they're all wearing their rain gear. 7 hours ahead. They'll be hoping for a big improvement in the weather, obviously. You can see the mist hanging over the mountains. They're fairly flat across the Lombardy stage, of course, until they get further along to the big climbs. Now, Pat McQuaid is with us, and Pat, Sean Kelly will be expected to do reasonably well here by the PDM team.
Yes, he's had a relatively quiet early season so far. There hasn't been a lot of pressure on him, but the pressure is really on today because this is the first of the World Cup events, and as we're looking at this very big bunch now climbing the Tirreno Pass, which is about just under halfway through the race, it is true that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Kelly.
Right, well, we'll move along and pick it up on the Cipressa, the second last climb of the race, 22 kilometres to go, and it's over the next two climbs, the Cipressa and the Poggio, that the race is going to be won and lost. To the front there you see Laurent Fignon in yellow, the man who won this race last year. In white on the right, Raul Alcala from Mexico. Alcala, who won the white jersey in the Tour de France in '87, the year Stephen Roach won it, the best young rider in the race. Teammate of Sean Kelly, they'll be hoping to maybe split the field a bit here, Pat.
Hopefully will, yeah. Now the story of this race so far has been that because of the conditions, the bunch more or less stayed together right down the Lombardy Plains, and even over the Tirreno Pass we saw them all together. They then descend down to Valtry where they hit the coast, and there was a Prima Valtry which was won by Roberto Pagnin, and that sprint really started an attack by four riders: Pagnin, Lietti, Cassani and Chiappucci, four Italian riders. Their lead grew from 25 seconds at Savona, 3 minutes, and then at Finale Ligure, which was only 50 miles when it finished, it was a maximum of 5.5 minutes. At that stage, it might be interesting to say that Greg LeMond retired from the race. But then on the Capoberta and now on the Cipressa, the chase went on, and between the Capoberta and the Cipressa, the PDMs got to the front, brought back that early breakaway group, and now on the Cipressa itself, they're starting to put the pressure on. Alcala at the very front, and trying probably to line the bunch out really, and trying to stretch them out really. Still a very big group here with only 22 kilometres of racing left.
And Sean Kelly there, we can see him in the top six there. He's on the right hand side beside Laurent Fignon. Also up there, Milan Masson from Holland. Still a long way to go, but generally this race, Pat, it does not have the bunch sprint finishes.
No, it generally doesn't, and it's really down to these last couple of climbs, the Cipressa, the Capoberta and the Poggio. And the reason is that it's the distance. This race is 294 kilometres long. It's the longest of all the classics. And whilst these climbs are not very steep and not very long, I mean, they're nothing compared with the Alps and the Pyrenees, when you've got that distance in your legs, and particularly on very bad conditions as we've had here today, then really the legs tell, and a small hill, every small hill really on the run into the finish is like a mountain in itself.
Right, well, there's Masson behind Alcala and the world rainbow jersey of Fondriest from Italy. We see Sean Kelly there just over the shoulder of Laurent Fignon. Kelly will be quite happy with the way things are going there with PDM prominent at the front.
Yes, the PDM tactics today will be to, as we can see here, stretch them out on the Cipressa, and not even just to try and get rid of some of the riders at the back, but also to pack the PDM riders up at the front, because the descent of the Cipressa is very twisting and very dangerous. And we may remember last year there were 2 or 3 riders involved in a crash on the descent and went over the edge. So Kelly certainly will want his teammates up in the first 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 around that, so that they can stay out of trouble, because you minimise your chances. The nearer you are to the front, you minimise your chances of being involved in a crash on the descent.
Well, there's Fondriest, of course. He was second last year behind Fignon. Fignon got away on the Cipressa last year.
On the Poggio, on the final climb of the Poggio, which comes now after this climb here, Fignon attacked and drew clear with Fondriest, and then beat Fondriest in the sprint.
Well, as they climb up, Kelly has probably 4 teammates in the leading bunch of 10 or 20, and that will please him. It's such a strong team too this year, Pat. Stephen Rooks, Tunis.
Yes, Rooks, Tunis, Dainans, Pedersen, Alcala, Kelly. It's definitely the strongest team in world cycling, and it's a team that have set their sights on this new World Cup competition. 12 of the top races in the world, the top single-day classics, have been singled out to form the new World Cup competition, and the PDM team have set their sights on winning that competition, and that is the reason that they brought Kelly into the team. There's been no pressure on him in the minor stage races, in the Tirreno Adriatico, and some of the minor stage races, the Ruta del Sol in Spain, and that he's competed in. There's been no real pressure on him to perform or to produce results. He has been told to get himself ready for the Spring Classics. This is the first of the Spring Classics, and today the pressure is on for the first time this year.
Yeah, but a pressure he would not have had previously, because his team would never have been that strong, really.
That's quite true. We can just see a shot there now of 4 PDMs at the front of the group. We can see it looks like Alcala, Rooks, Kelly and Dainans, the 4 leaders, and also in there is going to be Tunis as well. We can see him in about 6th place there. So PDM's packing up at the front. We're getting near the top, and they will all want to be up there for the descent.
Stephen Roach, of course, not taking part this time. That's because his team Fagor not ranked in the top 17 in the world.
No, because of the problems last year with the injury to Stephen and not getting results and so forth, the team just don't have the points in the world, in the points of computer rankings, and as a result, he doesn't qualify for Milan San Remo today. But he has said that they will be qualifying for all the later classics that take place, the Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders, because they're in France and Belgium, and there is a possibility he will be taking part in them.
Well, there we can see the man who won the race last year, Laurent Fignon, in 3rd place. He's making sure PDM don't try anything at this early stage. Still about 30 minutes cycling to go, and Alcala has really forced the pace in these early stages of the Cipressa.
But we can see all the favourites there. Kelly's there, Fignon, De Wilde in the Belgian national champions jersey there. If it comes to a finish, De Wilde will certainly be the favourite because he's sprinting very well so far this year. He's already won 9 or 10 races so far this year, and is on very good form. Fondriest is also there.
Sean Kelly hasn't won a race yet this year, but for instance in Tirreno Adriatico earlier this week, he wasn't well at all. He was suffering from a stomach bug.
That's true, and again it's partly because the pressure hasn't really been on him yet this year, and it will be on now and will be on over the next couple of weeks. We've got the Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, Amstel Gold, and these are the races that Kelly expects to figure well up in.
Of course, normally he's a man who would thrive on that kind of pressure, isn't he?
Normally would, yeah.
So the ascent continues. 207 riders, of course, starting off, but this will break them up certainly. We see PDM, look at PDM 1, 2 and 3 there. Then System U, and PDM also in 4th place. So PDM certainly dominating in these. They're quite happy to bring it along at this pace. You see Kelly in 3rd place there, 1:45 behind his 2 PDM teammates.
Fignon staying very well up close to the front. Fondriest in the World Champions jersey also close to the front. So really all the race favourites in the front of the group. Just now arriving at the top of the Cipressa as they go through the village now. They start that descent, a very twisting, very fast and very dangerous descent, and one that's going to line this group out in one long line.
And of course when they get to the bottom of this, they've only got 4 or 5 kilometres, and then they're climbing again on the Poggio. So the descent begins with PDM leading at the front. Kelly, Fignon, Fondriest, they're all in there.
Golt's also there, Bombini, Sargent, Baffi, the Italian sprinter, is also in the group. So still a lot of work to be done, and really in a group this size, if Kelly wants to win at the finish, he's got to really get this group smaller, and it's going to be down to the final climb of the Poggio, and I think it's probably be the responsibility of Tunis to lead the group up the Poggio and hopefully split this group up again and get Kelly into a small group of 5 or 6 riders over the top of the Poggio, and for Kelly to, as a springboard for Kelly to possibly win Milan San Remo. That certainly would be the tactics or the planning of the PDM team going into the race today.
Well, we can see there the dangerous hairpin bends. They'll have to be careful there. An accident here could happen quite easily, Pat.
could indeed, yeah. We remember last year on this descent now, a couple of riders went over the edge. They just ran out of the road and went over the edge. We're talking about going down here at maybe 45, 50 mile an hour, and they use the whole road now. Not a very wide road, but they use it all. And these roads, not very much used by normal traffic during the year, would be probably quite a bit gritty and so forth. And it's very possible to slip, go around a corner, and maybe halfway around you realise the corner is a lot tighter than it was going into it, and suddenly you're over the edge.
You can see the Ligurian coastline as they head along here towards the holiday resort of San Remo. At this stage they'd have about 15 kilometres, maybe 12 kilometres to San Remo.
See Tunis leading from Rooks, Kelly there as well. Two riders now very nearly coming down. A System U rider now running out of the road and very nearly coming down, but I think he actually stayed upright.
Well, that's what you were warning about there on those bends.
And that's the reason, as I say, that the PDMs wanted to be up the front, because by staying up the front they stay out of trouble and out of that possibility. Now, had those two riders fallen, they probably could have brought down another 4 or 5 riders as well. And if you're further down the group, then those chances are increased. You can see now how the descent just stretches this group out, because there's only really one line you can take on the bends and one line you can take on this descent. And as a result, every rider in one long single file all the way down. Probably, if for a spectator standing on the roadside now, it'll probably take 1 or 2 minutes for this big group to pass them by. Kelly's still up there in about 3rd or 4th place.
And at this stage you would have to say, Pat, that things are perfect for Kelly.
Things are perfect. He's got all his teammates around him, and probably in that group that's there's no other team would have as many riders in it now. That also brings upon it certain pressures with the team. And in this section here now, between the bottom of the Cipressa, they've just come back down now onto the coast road, and for the next 5 or 6 kilometres between here and the start of the Poggio, they're going to have to be very attentive, because here's where the attacks start, and every attack that goes, they'll expect that PDM do the chasing.
Charlie Motte there moving up alongside Rooks. Motte with RMO this year, former teammate of Fignon at System U. And we see another challenge here from the Italian. That's Bombini, Emanuele Bombini.
Bombini there attacking, and Kelly responding immediately there and on his wheel. Pensek taking the group up with Mackler on his wheel, another past winner of Milan San Remo.
Bombini's not going to get away anyway. Kelly sticking to his wheel. Stephen Rooks also up there. Of course, he and Sean Kelly rode together before.
Looking at one of the Italians here, Galeschi, front of the group. Guy Newlands of the Panasonic team moving up to the front.
So there we see Guy Newlands, 131 from the Panasonic team. PDM, that's Tunis, Gertian Tunis, a teammate of Sean Kelly. He's 147, Sean Kelly of course 145.
That's the first shots we've seen now of Tunis at the head of the affair now, and Tunis has taken it relatively easy. He wasn't involved in all the driving on the Cipressa, so it's really going to be down to Tunis to do it on the Poggio now for Kelly. Mark Sargent
there, yeah, from Hitachi.
Teammate of Claude Killian's, another rider now, ex-world champion, who is in that group as well. Sargent now on the attack.
See, the sponsors are getting in everywhere now, Pat. They even have logos on the backside of the shorts.
Delion of the Swiss Helvetia team, the team of Steve Bauer, another rider in the group also, Bauer. But Delion, French rider, very much riding for Bauer here in this group. So really it looks like it's going to come down to a battle on the Poggio, as it did last year in actual fact, when a group similar size to this hit the Poggio together, and then it really was a question of who was the strongest going over the top of the Poggio. And last year it was Fignon. As we're looking now at another attack, this time
Masson.
from Franz Masson of the Super Convex team. Young rider from the team of Jan Rass, his team captain Rolf Goltz, also in the group, last year's Nissan winner. But Masson, a rider who 2 years ago won the red jersey of the sprints competition in the Tour de France, and now on the attack.
Still wearing the arm warmers there. The weather obviously not too pleasant still for them.
No, the rain has stopped all right. Once they hit the coast, the rain stopped, but it's still not the usual sunshine that you would get along this coast.
Well, he's opening it out a bit there. You see the main bunch now gone down to what, 30, 35 riders.
Indeed, yeah, and attacks coming hot and heavy at the front of the group, and this is where PDM really have to be very attentive and have to watch it. Two riders now, another rider having gone up to Masson. Looks very like System U, possibly Fignon, that has gone up to Franz Masson. Two riders now going clear as we're approaching the Poggio.
Yes, it is Laurent Fignon who won this race last year. Fignon, of course, twice a winner of the Tour de France in 1983 and 1984. Now he'll know what it's all about here. He's working well with Masson there.
Yes, it's good to see Fignon taking risks now and taking a chance. He knows that if it's for him, if that group were to stay together over the Poggio, he would be beaten. There are too many sprinters in the group that could beat him. So he has got to take the initiative and try and get away now. It's also interesting to see him change his tactics, because last year he waited until the final kilometres of the Poggio to attack, and here he is now before the Poggio attacking or going up to Masson and trying to draw clear. So Fignon giving it his all and having a go.
A bit of a calculated gamble on his part.
Very much a calculated gamble, because with 4 or 5 PDM riders in the group behind, there are not too many riders that would feel they've got the strength to stay away from a team as strong as that.
So Laurent Fignon wearing number 1 because, of course, he won this race last year. He and Masson working well together. A bit of a calculated gamble, you reckon, Pat?
Very much a calculated gamble for Fignon. It's a different, as I said, a different thing that he did last year, where he waited at the top of the Poggio to attack. Here he is attacking before the Poggio.
So obviously the group now will be getting a little concerned that Fignon is up there. We see a break again.
Another rider's now trying to go up to the Fignon group. We got two riders now coming up. It looks like a Panasonic rider and one of the Italian Bianchi riders now trying to draw clear from the group. But Fignon and Masson still clear as we're approaching the Poggio. Two riders going up, and still no real reaction from the PDMs, and they should really be chasing. It might be that they're waiting to do it all on the Poggio and try and bring him back, although we can see now the figure of Gert van Tunis at the front of the group now moving forward and lining them out.
But again, if Fignon goes well on the Poggio, it could be trouble for PDM.
It certainly could indeed be trouble now. We're back with Masson now, and Masson driving on now. He knows he's only got a couple of, but maybe 9 kilometres to go in the race. Mind you, 4 of those are uphill, and that's up to the Poggio climb. But Fignon looking back to see how far his lead is on the group and working well with Masson. These two riders now working very well together. Fignon very strong, and we can see, generally speaking, he's pushing a much bigger gear than his rival Masson, who is young and will be riding on a reasonably low gear. But Fignon known for the big gears that he pushes now, as we're looking down now at the group. And still no real chase. When you see a group packed up like that, there's no real organised chase going on. They're still rolling along.
But PDM should be organising it, surely, with so many men there.
It should be. It's down to the PDM team, and all the other riders will look at the PDM team to do it now. So we're just looking at the 2 other riders now, Panasonic and a Bianchi rider, and they're just approaching the tunnel. And when they come out of this tunnel, they've only got 1 kilometre to go to the start of the Poggio.
And only 9 kilometres from the finish. So we're into the crucial last 15 minutes of the race. Sean Kelly will be getting a little anxious, I'd imagine, that Fignon's getting away at the front. PDM will want to put the pressure on at this stage. The Poggio will be the crucial climb, but as Pat points out, just 4 kilometres of an ascent there. And PDM won't want to let Fignon get too far away. You can see the coastline on the left-hand side. There we see 2 men trying to catch up with Fignon and Masson. Newlands of Belgium and Martinello from Italy.
It's still all very tight, and really the gap now, looking at them coming out of the tunnel there, the gap seems to be only about 35-40 seconds between the 2 leaders and the main field. Now if the PDMs really put the pressure on the climb of the Poggio, they can bring these 2 leaders back. So it's really down to PDM, and the race is still very much open. It's nobody's race yet. These 2 riders aren't really home and dry. There's going to be a lot of riding done on this climb now, as we're looking at Masson and Fignon on the bottom slopes of the Poggio climb.
Fignon, of course, who pulled out of the Paris-Nice race a couple of weeks ago. He had stomach trouble when Stephen Roche made such a big impression, finishing 2nd in that race. At this stage, what would be going through his mind now, Pat?
this stage, all that's going through his mind is to get onto this climb and get up to the top of it as quick as possible. He's worrying about what's going on behind because he won't know. We're looking now down at the two chasers, Martinello and Newlands. And Fignon really won't know he won't have any information as to what's happening behind. All he will be doing, and of course he'll be a pessimist, he'll be assuming that the PDMs are at the front of the group and they're chasing very hard. And he will just hope that his strength can hold out on the climb and that he's going to be strong enough to go up without really suffering and to keep the momentum and keep the pace up all the way up this winding climb.
Well, they are on the climb now. We see them beginning their ascent, the two leaders, Masson and Fignon. And here you see the bunch beginning the big ascent up the Poggio. Down to 25, 30 riders in the chasing group now. They were all together really until the Cipressa, when Raul Alcala, a teammate of Sean Kelly, took the race by the scruff of the neck and really opened it up. There you see the gap.
You can see the gap, and also Fignon will be able to know what the gap is as well, because he can look down on some of these hairpin bends. He can look back and see the group coming up behind, so he can keep a constant. We see him looking over now at the group coming up behind, so he can monitor constantly what's happening in the group behind and how the chase is going on. Looking back also to Masson, and just in looking back, he's actually asking Masson to come up and ride alongside him and help him make the pace.
So they're sharing the workload well. It'll be a matter of can they keep that pace going. There you see Sean Kelly, second in the bunch, going up 1:45.
Something wrong here, because really I was expecting to look at that group and see 4 or 5 PDM riders at the front of the group, and I see Kelly the only one up there, so all we can assume is that something has happened, and Rooks and Tunis don't seem to be in that group for some reason or other. Whether they've punctured or crashed, we don't know, but the chase not really going on as it should do.
And Fignon will be quite happy with the way the race is going now. He's still got that lead of maybe a couple of 100 metres. You see the glass houses, incidentally, all the way up the Poggio. They're orchids, Pat, growing there.
That's right. This area is famous for its orchids and its flowers. And information coming through now that there has been actually a crash on the lower slopes of the Poggio, and that Tunis was involved in it, came down. Rooks was held up by the crash, and Tunis and Rooks are now back on their bikes and now chasing, so that explains their absence from the front of the group and from the chase really that should have been going on. Now that in actual fact is going to be very much to Fignon's benefit, because really the gap was about 30-40 seconds and it should have been one long hard chase. We can just see now the 4 riders coming back up to the group now, having been involved in that crash. Now that's not good for Kelly.
Very bad news indeed for Sean Kelly. We see the bunch, they're making their way up. They are going to get back up, but they could be a bit rattled, maybe possibly injured. We see Sean Kelly in the middle of the front three wearing 145. He's looking back, Pat, obviously a bit concerned there as he leads the chase.
Yeah, but we can see there's no real chase. Kelly's still looking around for his teammates to come up and do the driving. We see a System U rider alongside Kelly. He's up there just blocking for Fignon, so he is. And it looks like one of the Italian riders also up there. So really this group should be in one long line chasing the 2 leaders, and they're not as such, and that is not looking good. So the gap certainly isn't coming down, and if Fignon and Masson arrive at the top of the Poggio with a similar lead of 25-30 seconds, they are then home and dry.
Yeah, we could certainly see the concern there on Sean Kelly's face as Masson leads it out. Masson in the lead, the Super Convex rider, 24 years of age, number 188. Fignon takes over. Fignon, one of the most experienced riders in the world. And Fignon keeping the pressure going. Really, Kelly's bunch are going to have to launch an all-out attack now.
They will do now. Fignon really driving in a very big gear now, going up this climb, driving on and keeping the pressure on, and he's probably making, his legs are hurting himself, and also I'm sure Masson's legs are hurting as well. But they know they've only got 1 or 2 kilometres to go to the top of this climb, and then Masson looks to be in trouble actually. Masson, that little drive of Fignon's there now, and Fignon doesn't realise it yet, but Masson certainly looking to be in trouble.
Yes, Fignon certainly has intense pressure. He's looking back. I think he senses that Masson's in trouble, and he's putting the pressure, stepping up. That little bit of extra pressure. Fignon out of the saddle, driving. Now, can Masson respond? Well, he doesn't look like he's responding there. Masson in trouble, Pat.
Masson certainly. Masson, to use a cycling expression, Masson has cracked at that point in actual fact, and Fignon has cracked him. And Fignon, as soon as he looked around and realised that Masson was just that little bit adrift, he's immediately got out of the saddle and drove on, and that psychologically, even to Masson, just ruined them altogether, ruined any chance he had of staying with Fignon. So Fignon now really driving on, knowing that as last year's winner, he will remember this descent and remember this section very well anyway, because he was with Fondriest at that stage. stage. Now here he is approaching the top of the Poggio on his own.
And looking very good at this stage, it must be said. Just the descent to go. And Fignon has showed his experience there. He broke Masson just when Masson had put in so much effort. They've been going now for 6.5, nearly 7 hours.
Fignon now just driving, pushing a very big gear, and it's as I said earlier, a feature of Fignon's riding that he does push these big gears now. A lot of people, he won the Tour de France on 2 occasions. He won a classic last year, the Milan San Remo. It was his first classic win. He didn't have a very good year after that, and a lot of people felt that he was possibly over the top and possibly didn't deserve the enormous salary which is paid by System U and Rally. But here he is back now at the head of affairs and back now in the classic that they all want to win, and we can see now the chase.
2 more. Sean Kelly could be there as they lead the bunch in the chase now. Sean Kelly looks like the second man there. Yes, it is Sean Kelly, 145, and in front of him the rainbow jersey of the current world champion Maurizio Fondriest from Italy. Fondriest, of course, who was second to Fignon last year.
But Fignon already on the descent.
Distance.
It's quite a distance, about 35 or 40 seconds the gap, and really there's no way I can see Fignon being caught by the 2 chasers now. Masson is also in between. At this stage he will be between Fignon and Kelly and Fondriest.
So barring an accident now, we must say that Fignon is looking very good. Sean Kelly will he be looking back at that accident as the crucial part of the race?
Possibly. I mean, a lot of questions will be asked afterwards, and a lot of questions will be asked as to why Fignon got away before the Poggio and why on the Poggio the big chase didn't take place. All we can assume, we know nothing more about it, was that the fact that Tunis and Rux were not able to perform the chase that necessary on the Poggio, then that was the reason. But I mean, it's the same old story. No matter what way you look at it, the winner is the man who took the risk. The winner is the man who attacked. The winner is the man who changed his tactics instead of the usual tactics of wait for a sprint and waiting for the finish. Fignon wasn't prepared to do that. He changed even his tactics from the previous year, broke away before the climb when the sprinters were all looking at each other, and capitalised on it. And we can see him now with Masson only about 7 or 8 seconds behind him.
And they're on the flat now, and Fignon really surely has it now. He's only a couple of kilometres to go to the finish. Laurent Fignon of France, 1 kilometre from the finish now. Fignon, the man who won it last year. The big Italian crowd, of course, would have loved an Italian winner again. They've had some great victories here over the years, but Fignon is looking good. The chase is on, but they've left it too late. They let Fignon go with Masson, and now I'm sure there are many men in that pack who regret that decision. Fignon raises his fist to some French supporters in the crowd. He comes around onto the home straight. Laurent Fignon, a marvellous performance by him. He took the chance. It's paid off for him. You see Masson coming around the corner in the background. Fignon looks around. He knows he has it won. Raises his arms. Fignon just several seconds ahead of Masson, but he's delighted. Look at that. Fignon crossing the line, his arms raised aloft. Laurent Fignon wins the race for the 2nd year in a row. Masson coming across, he'll be disappointed, but it was a good performance by him. The Super Confex rider finishes second, 8 seconds behind Fignon, and now we have the bunch sprint.
Big bunch now being led out by Cipressa. It looks like the Italian leading it out now. We can see Kelly there in the centre of the picture in the white jersey, swinging over towards the left of the screen. Kelly now, Pensick just on his wheel. On the right we've got the Wild in the centre, on the right in the black jersey. Kelly now leading out the group coming through. Pensick coming by. Pensick just takes him. Kelly probably finished about 5th place, I think, on the race.
So Laurent Fignon of France retains his title, the man who's won Tour de France titles in 1983 and 1984. We see the sprint finish again, Pat. Kelly on the right.
We can see Kelly on the right in the blue jersey. On his left is Baffy. Also
Pensac
there,
coming up.
Pensac, also there, Gaia the Italian, Danilio Gaia, rider number 19 there, and we can see now from the front.
So Baffy there on the right as we look at it. Kelly in white, and Pensac coming up outside Kelly, and it looks like Pensac does get past Sean as well as Baffy.
Yeah, Baffy there in the of the Aristea team in the red jersey, just taking 3rd place. Pensac 4th, Kelly 5th.
So there we see the man, 7 hours from Milan to San Remo, and he's a delighted man. Laurent Fignon of France, the winner of the